Morning, Richard. How are you? Morning, everyone. I'm Mitchell Englander, Chairman of the Public Safety Committee. Today is Friday, September 27th. I'm joined by Mitch O'Farrell, my colleague. Thank you for being here this morning. Appreciate it. While we don't have a quorum yet, we do anticipate one. And so we're going to go ahead and go into consent items first, which will be a communication from the chair. If at some point we meet a quorum, we'll open those items back up for a full communication from the committee as well. And so with that, we'll go ahead and move items on consent. Item 2, item 3, item 4, and that DNA backlog reduction grant will be extended. So it will be amended to extend that to December 31st. Oh, I'm sorry, that's item 6. So we've got 2, 3, 6, and the 6 will be the extension.
2, 3, 4.
2, 3, 6, 7. 4 we're going to hold.
Okay.
So 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. Unless my colleague has any items specifically, then that'll be the direction of the committee.
Committee members, item 8 has a CO report submitted out for the publication of the agenda. Do you want to approve that?
Accept that report as well. So without objection, that'll be the order. And we'll go ahead and hear items 1, 4, 5, and 11. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and take public comment and get that out of the way. We do have one public comment card. Seeing no other public comment cards, Noel Weiss, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Appreciate the opportunity to give you public comment, Councilman. Thanks.
I will. Let me just go on the record and say that we still reserve the position that while we're not required if we don't meet quorum, because any item that is before this committee for either public comment or general public comment is not actually met in the direction, we'll start your clock over. Don't worry about
Thank
that.
you.
And therefore, any item that doesn't meet that requirement, although we have a quorum now, is reheard in the entire City Council as well. So with that, Mike, morning.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Bonnet.
We'll start your clock from the beginning. Not that you need all the other 13 seconds, but just in case.
You know what? It's a question of how fast.
Can we go ahead and reset his clock?
Thank you.
Great, thanks very much.
And just for the record, I think, again, Mr. Englander, you know that I take issue with your comments relative to the obligation of this committee to hear public comment, even in the absence of a quorum as per your council rules and as per the Brown Act. I wrote you a letter on it. I'm not going to debate it at this point. We have a quorum. It's moot. But I just wanted to put that on the record.
Oh, I'm happy to debate it.
But not on my time, on your time.
Oh, okay.
I'm here relative to the issue, again, of the public safety hazard represented by the 25 million gallons of butane in San Pedro in two 12.5 million gallon tanks. That public safety hazard has been, Mr. Chairman has been aware of it, Mr. Bonnet and Mr. O'Farrell have not, because they're new to the committee. The public safety hazard basically represents a need for action by this council because nothing is being done. Now, Mr. Buscano's introduced a bunch of motions, but frankly, if he changes his mind, it'd be better that he simply say, you know, I changed my mind, there's nothing I feel that I can do. Janice Hahn says these tanks should go. There's ways of basically regulating in a competent, fair way so that we can appropriately balance the public safety because against, obviously, the need for this company basically to do business. And my desire of this committee is essentially to move these things forward if a problem happens, if there's an incident, if there's an accident. Frankly, it's avoidable, it's needless, and it's important that at least we have the debate and discussion. That's the role of council people. That's the role of our government, is basically to serve the needs of the people in the sense of drawing out the debate. To sit on the debate, to sit on the issue is not right when we're confronted with this kind of a threat. And again, there are ways in terms of a risk management ordinance that can be passed, ways of getting adequate insurance to protect the risk. This is an entity, by the way, that has been cited by the EPA for violations this March, and they simply do not have the ability, and I've given documentation, I will continue to do so, to respond in damages in the event that there's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That'll conclude all general public comment cards. Seeing no other general public comment cards, we'll go ahead and go into the specific agenda items. Number 1, we have a potential commissioner for the Police Permit Review Board, Steve Robinson. Steve here. Morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. And why do you want to do this? And what is it you're doing?
A little bit about myself. Grew up in Detroit, Michigan, moved out here in 1983. I've had a few businesses along the way since I've been in Los Angeles. Right now, I'm running a company that helps people with chronic and life-threatening illness improve the quality of their life through an online intervention of coping skills training. I'm also a reserve officer at Hawthorne, going through the Sheriff's Academy right now. I have 5 children. I'm married to a wonderful woman. Live on the west side near Westwood. And why I want to do this is my actual affinity towards police work and the desire to try to help. We also have a foundation that we started last year in South Central where we help kids from 3rd grade through post-secondary education with all their educational needs, all their athletic needs, all their other kinds of needs, just to help them get a leg up. We started that last year, and we have 30 kids in the program right now, and we're trying to build and grow that.
Excellent. Thank you. I didn't realize you were a reserve officer in Hawthorne. And you said you're going through an academy now.
I'm going through the academy right now, the Sheriff's Academy, right?
Sheriff's Academy. So you're sworn in Hawthorne?
Not sworn yet, no. Been hired as a
Okay, so you're a volunteer there.
reserve.
Now you're going through
the academy, right?
Excellent. Fantastic. Terrific. How did you find out or apply for, or how did this come to be in terms of the Police Permit Review Board, and how much do you know about it and the kinds of things you'll be overseeing?
It came to be through Kevin James, actually. I'm a friend of Kevin James. He recommended me for it, and a couple weeks later, after he put my name in, I guess, for recommendation, he called me up and said there was a likelihood that I was going to be considered for it, and asked me if I was interested in doing it, and I said, yeah, I'm very interested in doing it.
And what do you know about it in terms of what they do and the responsibilities and the time commitment?
I understand the time commitment is 3 Wednesdays a month, starting at 2:30 in the afternoon and going for as long as the agenda takes, which is fine for me. I understand the responsibilities are to review permits and that have to do with massage parlors or bars, strip clubs, other kinds of permits that come before the panel.
Any questions from my colleagues?
Real quick question. Thanks for volunteering to stepping up to the plate, Mr. Robinson. What are some of your short-term and long-term goals once on the panel?
I frankly haven't thought about short-term and long-term goals. My short-term goal is just to do the work I'm asked to do and do it as well as I can. Frankly, with the business that I have and the academy, I don't have any particularly longer-term goals past that right now. This fits in really well with what I want to do, and I really want to get a taste of what it's like to work in this kind of environment. And so again, for my short-term goal is just to do the best job I can on the panel.
Great. Excellent. All right, we'll go ahead and confirm your appointment from this committee. Go ahead and move you on to the full City Council.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Without objection, that'll be the order. Great. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and take items 4 and 5 together.
Morning, John White, City Clerk. Item 4, communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to a sub-recipient agreement with the Los Angeles Regional Interoperable Communication System Joint Powers Authority for the fiscal year 2009 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Award. Item 5, communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to reappropriations of funds for fiscal year 2013-14 from the UASI 2009, 10, and 11 grant awards. Item 5 has a CEO report that was submitted after the publication of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is all new and hasn't been a long time coming at all. It just probably arose yesterday, right? How many years has this been in the works now in terms of moving forward on LA Rex? And if you can give us an overview, I'm certainly very familiar with it, and I'm very familiar with all the work that you two have put in, and many, many, many others, and a lot of different agencies throughout the county. And I can't thank you enough. It's been through legal challenges and various RFPs, and this is now the end of a beginning, or the beginning, if you will. So, good morning, Eileen.
Well, good morning. Eileen Decker, Deputy Mayor for Homeland Security and Public Safety. Good morning. As you have indicated, sir, this has been a long time in the making, and I thank you for recognizing that the LA-RICS project is a collaboration of many, many entities, and we are just sitting here on behalf of all of them, hopefully to synthesize all of the work that they have done. In terms of how long this has been in the making, it depends when you start counting. The concept of LA-RICS probably dates back, since 9/11 at least, if not before that time. And as you know and can imagine, bringing the entire county of Los Angeles together is an enormous effort with all the different cities, law enforcement, public safety representatives involved. The concept is very simply to have interoperable communications with all of our first responders and even secondary responders. To fast forward very quickly, the LA-RICS formed a JPA. They sent out RFPs. There were some problems with several versions of the RFP. The third version, the third time was the charm apparently. The contract was awarded to Motorola, and the contract was only just signed in about mid-August. How that relates to what's in front of you, UASI money, the Urban Security Initiative, or Urban Area Security Initiative, monies have been set aside all along to support this project. And now you have before you UASI 9, about $16 million that will go greatly to funding phase 1, which is the design phase of the interoperable project. And so what you have before you with item 4 is to give the mayor's office the authority to sign a subrecipient agreement with the LA-RICS JPA so that they can spend the money on phase 1, which is the design phase. That's hopefully a...
No, I understand with all the, thank you very much for that very quick overview, and that's quick. In fact, I remember it was pre-9/11 where it was Sheriff Baca. This was his campaign platform when he started running against then Sheriff Block, who had the unfortunate incident of passing away during that election. But this was one of the cornerstones of his election was interoperability, and nobody knew what he was talking about. And just the simple fact that nobody could communicate. And it wasn't until 9/11, I think, that it really became a household term in law enforcement and communications and the ability for interoperability, and which is so critically important in all incidents, not just major disasters and threats, but in all different situations. So there's been a lot that has gone into this. We've had this throughout this committee, certainly over the years, many, many times, and it's been frustrating at many times, and you've put your career into this, quite frankly, not just a lot of time. You've spent a lot of time on this, and to see it come through fruition now, this is only phase 1. We realize that this is upwards of $260 million, not $16 million, and quite frankly, it's about $1 billion once it's all done, all in, with all the systems, the devices, different communication options, all the various municipalities in their costs. It's been estimated, I believe, at about $1 billion communication infrastructure system. But it becomes then county-wide where we have that ability now. And it's incredible for those that don't know. When we're out in the field as police officers, firefighters, CHP, whoever that might be, you can't communicate with another agency by picking up your radio. They can be right next to you, and you cannot talk to them in most situations. And with different departments, and if you can imagine going through particularly mutual aid situations where you've got a major fire, an earthquake, the Metrolink incident, which was 5 years ago, September 12th, is a great example of that, where you had all of these agencies right there on the field working together, hand in hand, yet they couldn't communicate and had to go through dispatch, and it was just a nightmare. I mean, you're literally writing down people's cell phone numbers. And so this is a long time in the works. I am incredibly excited about this opportunity, and now that we've gone through so many challenges, and to come out with not only a roadmap to get there and the necessary funds to get there, at least for Phase 1 and 2, I think, that have been identified. This will come before this body again, I imagine, in every phase. Once the build-out plan, which is what we're about to approve now, is complete, that'll come back and let us know where we're at.
Phase 1 will be very informative because it will identify how the system will operate, and I would recommend at that time this committee would want a full briefing on that because that impacts greatly the operations within the city.
So we'll ask that we move this forward. I want to hear from my colleagues and see if they have input or questions on this as well. And we'll ask that when Phase 1 is complete, that it would come back to this committee and then the full City Council.
Thank you. Congratulations on getting to this point. I'm actually somewhat familiar with this issue. 10 years ago, I worked for Congresswoman Harmon, who was absolutely obsessed with getting this done from her perch, representing both the port and the airport, but also being on the Intelligence Committee and focusing on counterterrorism. And I remember many meetings with Congresswoman Harmon and Sheriff Baca on this very subject. Jane could never understand why it took more than 90 days to do anything, so I'm going to call her later today and let her give her the status update on this. Phase 1 is design. What is Phase 2?
It begins the build-out, equipment purchases. There are some equipment purchases here, but it does go in phases, and the first phase design, second phase they begin construction.
So realistically speaking, when do we have the interoperable communications capability?
It is designed as the design phase will determine that, but conceptually the goal is to have it on a rolling basis. In other words, every form of construction will be workable immediately. It's not that one day they'll flip a switch and all of a sudden everybody will be interoperable, but as they're building towers, it creates interoperability. It adds to interoperability, so it will be a phased-in process.
So when we're done with Phase 1 and Phase 2, God forbid there's an incident at LAX, who then is part of the system?
It's all our regional partners, including LAWA PD, LAPD, LA Fire, County Fire, sheriffs, all the cities in the area. But I do want to caution that right now, everybody's part of the JPA and represented on the JPA, but there does come a point in time where everybody has to, I don't know the right phrase, but buy into the process, the design.
Right.
So right now, everybody is working together towards that, but there is a point where the independent cities will have to vote to join, in other words.
Will it also include the TSA?
Federal partners are not a part of it, but they do have access to it.
Okay. All right.
But rail would be included. So I believe Metro Rail is part of partnership.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of the airport, obviously TSA is going to be getting different information and stuff like that. And so,
well, we are separately working with our federal partners to encourage them to have interoperability at the very least so that we're not working with multiple systems with the FBI, CBP, TSA at the airport. But our system will be available and have radios, our radios. They're just not federal radios.
do we need help getting congressional support or pushes on that? Or are we good?
No. I think we're working it out locally, sir. And if you'd like a separate briefing on this, we could do it for you at LAX.
Okay.
Because we do meet regularly with them to talk about making sure everybody's coming along together on this project.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to join that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Decker. And when you do that separate briefing, I would love to be part of that. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, and congratulations on moving this forward. This is long overdue and very exciting, and probably the largest collective communication emergency system ever, quite frankly, put together in U.S. history, and for that matter, probably one of the largest in the world. So this is a big step forward in getting this off the ground.
You know how Joe Biden would describe it?
I'm scared to ask. On the record, I'm scared to ask. With that, without objection, it'll be a unanimous vote out of this committee.
Thank you, sir, for your support in the committee.
Items approved. Clarification, please, committee members. There was mention made earlier of an extension of a date for a
Yes, that would be for item 6.
Okay.
It would be on the DNA backlog reduction grant. We're actually extending that grant period through December 31st.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. That leaves us with one final item, item 11. We've got one public comment card, although I'm reluctant to call him forward, but I'll do so anyway. Peter Repovich.
Item 11, Board of Police Commissioners report relative to the use and retention of recorded in-car video and the LAPD's protocol for police officers when the digital in-car video system in their patrol vehicle is not operational.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'd just like to say, generally speaking, there has been some problems with the in-car video system. For the most part, it's a very positive thing for our police officers, but we need to make sure that the rules that were negotiated in order to prevent unnecessary personnel complaints are complied with and paid attention to. That's pretty much it. If we can wrap our arms around keeping our cops out of trouble, but doing it in such a way that we don't get administratively punitive on a regular basis, I think everybody would be happy. So it's important to pay attention to those details as we go forward in going to on-person video. And I know that we've met with Councilman Englander's office regarding our issues and the department. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. And if we can bring the department forward on this. Morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
How's the baby?
Getting big.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Maggie Goodrich. I'm the CIO for the LAPD. I'm joined here by Sergeant Dan Gomez, who leads my tactical technology section in the Information Technology Bureau, and Deputy Chief Bob Green, who is our bureau chief in South Bureau, which is the location for Phase 1 of in-car video that's been in place for several years now. The item before you is actually in response to your motion, Councilmember Englander, in regard to the use and retention of video. If you'd like, I can just recap sort of the main points here. So there were 4 points made in your motion, and so the first was around the release of video. And basically in that regard, we released the video obviously in response to a subpoena legal proceedings as directed by the city attorney. Otherwise, typically requests are met with a response, again, under advisement by the city attorney, but typically we claim the exemption under the investigatory records California Government Code section. In regard to the second question was about a draft policy regarding the use of the recorded video. I've attached our existing policies to this report. There's a Special Order 45, which is the department policy you'll see. That was initially sort of the department's first effort at a policy around in-car video that was produced via meet and confer with the league. And then later, special order out of South Bureau that Chief Green issued clarified and added some detail to that. So as we proceed with implementation of in-car video, and I expect to be before you hopefully shortly on the approval of the contract for the next phase of in-car video, which will go to Central Bureau, we'll go back to the table and basically take the South Bureau order, the department order, and work to merge the two, obviously in discussions with the league again, to come up with one overall department policy. Your third item was a request regarding retention of video. Currently, we meet the LA Administrative Code requirement of 5 years. I did attach a city attorney opinion that did recommend that retention could be reduced to 2 years. The department would obviously fall right in line with that should City Council so choose to ask the city attorney to move in that direction certainly would provide a cost savings. While in just one bureau of in-car video, that cost savings may not seem like much to some. When you multiply that across the city, certainly it would help significantly. And then lastly, the fourth item in your motion was in regard to what officers are required to do if in-car video camera is not operative. And again, that is addressed in the Operations South Bureau order. And the officers are to notify the kit room, and if it truly is non-operative, they take the car to motor transport for repair. We have individuals who are certified to work on the equipment or to replace the equipment. I had motor transport run those numbers for me to see on average what those repairs are looking like, and they reported that basically over a 2-year period, each vehicle equipped with in-car video was brought in for a in-car video system related repair once every 13 months. So the system is proving to be reliable and stable. And a lot of that goes to motor transport when they just do basic vehicle maintenance. Part of their inspection of the car is to look at the in-car video equipment and ensure it's operating properly and catch things before the car has to be brought in by an officer. So with that,
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. And I wanted to thank you all as well as working towards this objective and meeting these goals in technology, which is an amazing enhancement, both for the officers, for the department, for the city in terms of risk management, and for the general public. As we've seen, and we're now diving into an added enhancement in looking at on-officer video to complement in-car video. Something that, certainly you're well aware that I've been focused on for a couple of years now and looking at on-officer video as that enhancement. And that technology has really changed dramatically since we started first having the conversation. Mm-hmm. We'll bring that up at a later date, and I know there's another motion pending on that as well, and I'm happy to discuss that with you. But as we move towards these objectives, and I really do appreciate a lot of the conversation, the dialogue, and how responsive the department's been, particularly to my office, as we've been diving into this and looking at all these details and working with not only the officers and the public and the media, but the department and the league as well. And so I wanted to thank all the partners in this and seeing these enhancements and how they really will improve what's happening. And if you look at other departments like New York, they've been mandated not only to require maintaining their in-car video, but they've now been mandated by a judge to have on-officer video in some of their bureaus because of some of their issues. That's how forward we are thinking, I think. And when we say we're the best department in the country, we're out of a consent decree. These were not part of, but a recommendation of coming out of the consent decree to have some of the in-car video. Not only have we done that, we're expanding that. The new RFP is coming forward, and I look forward to approving that as well and moving it on. But also looking at and enhancing it with on-officer video. But with that also, and I appreciate you sharing some of the policies and where we're at. There were 2 special orders, I believe, a previous 7, number 45, and then the South Bureau. And I want to thank as well our Deputy Chief Green and Sergeant Gomez as well for all of their time and effort in looking at this and enhancing not only the current policies and technologies, but improving those as well. And so in our conversations and moving forward, it appears that the department now will be looking at merging all of those special orders, if you will, into one citywide as we're rolling this now out. Special Order 45, I believe, said specifically it was a pilot. It's no longer a pilot. We're moving forward. But as we start moving forward, I have a couple recommendations, if I could, as the department starts drafting that next citywide special order, as how we relate to not only not in-car video, but also on-officer video. So I'm sure they're going to be closely aligned, and as it relates to data and how we use it. But first, let me take a step back, and one of the things you had mentioned was the data retention. I've reviewed all the files, all the Attorney General's opinions, as well as the state legislatures, as well as our City Attorney's Office opinions that you provided. I really appreciate providing all that documentation. I've actually read it all, and it appears that it's somewhat ridiculous what the policy, we've gone way over and above what we even should be doing for many reasons, and it costs tens of thousands of dollars just in one bureau alone. And looking at moving this forward, by my account, and looking at all the legal analysis, there is no reason we would have to keep it for more than 1 year. However, the department would like to extend that to another year at a minimum for 2 years, just to be on the safe side. And I applaud those recommendations. I'd ask that as part of the approval of this item, that we ask for an admin code change to accept the 2-year retention policy on data storage. I think it's more than sufficient. It doubles the state recommendation of 1 year, and there's a tremendous cost savings. Realizing full well that with that admin code change, any incident that is under investigation, that data is pulled in perpetuity and maintained and stored forever. So we're only talking about the things that don't have any officer complaints and investigative purposes, things that are just going to sit and store for no reason, that are beyond the statute of limitations, that make no sense in keeping. And so we'll ask, as this recommendation moves forward onto council, that'll be adopted as part of this as well. And I'm going to ask for input from my colleagues on this as well. And a couple other things. As we move forward then in looking at this cutting-edge technology and how it's enhancing policing, and looking at some of the issues that the League brought up as well, and knowing that the department is moving forward with a collective citywide policy on this, what I would ask, if I could, respectfully, is that perhaps the department led by the police commission, and perhaps the executive director of the commission can take a lead on this, in developing a survey and working with the Police Protective League, developing some type of survey, and I would ask that it be a blind survey, perhaps going to those officers in the field that have had in-car video, just asking for their input on what recommendations would they have, what suggestions would they have, because anytime we bring in a new powerful technology, there's always room for improvement, enhancement. There may be some concerns. The League had brought up some ideas, perhaps to ensure that this technology is not supposed to, and this is the conversations I've had with them and some of the officers as well, it's not meant to be gotcha technology. It's not meant to say, okay, we were reviewing an incident, as an example, and we noticed that the officer, and I'm just using a hypothetical, wasn't wearing his seatbelt. Now, that's not why we were reviewing the video. It's had nothing to do with the specific incident, and maybe he just took it off right before the video went on so he can quickly get out of a car for a tactical situation, but all of a sudden they ding him for not having a seatbelt. Not that we're doing that, but so we just don't do that in the future. I know there's some things the League has brought up to me like that to ensure that we have the policy sort of protects the officers when it's not incident or complaint specific, but also that we look at it for what it is, and it's a tool and an enhancement for risk management to protect the public as well as the officer themselves. We've seen the numbers are amazing. They're staggering. We've seen that the complaints are not only way down, but the ones that are in are unjustified. It's phenomenal. This is exactly why the officers do want this as a protection of them. In fact, I've been out there and I've seen officers purchase their own cameras. They're wearing their own purchased cameras just to protect themselves. And so I think it goes a long way. So if that's okay, and I wanted to ask your opinion on that, what do you think about going in that direction as you start developing the policy and then looking at that information and working with the League partners, bringing that back to the Police Commission and working that out through the department and the commission?
Yes, we have a online tool we can use for an anonymous survey online, so we certainly can put something together. We'll work with the Police Commission and the League on that. And then as far as anything that will be incorporated into the policy, that will be addressed during meet and confer with the League, and at a minimum, the Executive Director of the Police Commission typically would participate in something like that. So
Terrific. Okay, so we'll make that recommendation, and I wanted you guys to weigh in as well on this and your experience, and I appreciate you coming here this morning as well, Chief.
The system's phenomenal. And I think the thing that we're falling short is a very aggressive sales campaign on the system to get the numbers out, because 2 years in a row we have statistics where it's unfounded or exonerated officers in 90% of the personnel complaints that it's used. Still a lot of misinformation out there. The thing we'll have to be careful with is even in Special Order 45, we don't really care about private conversations in cars. Well,
Right.
those things aren't recorded until we activate. But once you push that button, it'll go back 60 seconds to record video, but it won't record audio. Once you push that button, we have to be very concerned because although it may not have anything to do with that incident, in civil litigation, that'll get used against those officers, and they clearly have to understand that. So Bob Green may not care what they're saying in that car, but that could be the recipe for $1 million payout for the city of LA. So it's as we move forward with that input, and I think the survey is a really good idea. We have to walk that fine line to protect our cops and protect the city, because as soon as that thing's activated, everything that is recorded is now subject to discovery.
It's a good point. And I would ask that if you could take one of those blind surveys as well as the chief, but if the surveys and the responses from all those surveys could be shared with the league as you develop these policies, and then we can work towards those issues. No good deed goes unpunished. We have incredible technology that we could use in our favor to benefit the public greatly and create transparency for the department, but at the same time could be manipulated and used against us, and that wasn't the intent. And it doesn't always tell the whole story. It's just an enhancement to fill in pieces that we weren't aware of. So we need to make sure we are protected on all ends, and we protect the public as well. So we do look forward to your input, Chief, on that, and I do appreciate that, and I've heard that as well. Lieutenant, thank you very much. Or Sergeant, sorry.
I'll take the promotion.
Yeah. All right, we'll just call you LT.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I think that, my unit's existence to begin with is, under the vision of Chief Beck and Ms. Goodrich, was to have sworn members of this department be able to look at the technology and be that kind of intermediate person between patrol, command staff, so we make sure that we get those. I think the survey is a fantastic idea. We certainly, all the folks that work under me, make sure we go out into the field, we're with the officers, we get their input, we bring that directly, and then we serve as that person who then relays it up. So I think it's a fantastic idea. We'll continue that cooperative stance with them. And as always, as you know, we're constantly looking at the technology. We're making sure we have the latest and greatest. But not only that it's a bell and whistle, but that it actually applies in some way to enhance officer safety, to help them do their job, and to serve the public. So we're constantly looking at that.
So I really appreciate all three of you coming here and everything you've done, and all the work you've done, as well as the department. I've always said that there's one person in the entire police department that has the absolute best job in the entire police department, and that's Sergeant Gomez, because he gets to try and test every new toy, every new weapon, every new technology, first and foremost, out of the gate, before anybody's seen it, and everybody wants to get it in the hands of LAPD first in this world, and it ends up in on your desk, and so I envy you in your position.
That is the chairman's dream job. I assure you.
That is a dream job. I just want to play in his office for one day. But with that, colleagues,
Just real quickly, if I may, Mr. Chair, you articulated so many things so extremely well. I just want to underscore something you mentioned as well, and that is that as we explore the lapel cameras, that system augments the system that will be rolled out eventually to Central Bureau and beyond in terms of the car cameras. So that's just of great importance. And Chief, you made a great point as well. The law of unintended consequences in terms of the audio in relation to the video, that absolutely has to be completely ironed out and in sync. And then, Sergeant, haven't seen Mitchell's eyes light up until he started talking about what you do. So what Mike said is absolutely true. So, thank you.
Just a couple questions, kind of curiosity stuff. If the system turns on in the car when the sirens come on?
The light bar, yes.
You can activate it in a number of different ways.
If that doesn't work, is there a backup capability where the officers can manually turn it on?
Yes. You
Yeah,
want to describe it?
so there are three specific ways that the system can turn on. One is by a light bar control. The other is within the car, there's a button that they can push to activate it. And then each officer that's within the car carries a transmitter on them. That's where they pick up the mic. They can also turn on remotely away from the vehicle. So if they're at an incident that didn't warrant the system to turn on initially, but they want to turn it on, they simply push a button and the system turns on. The only way the system can be turned off is if you go back to the car and press stop within the car.
Okay. Chief, when you mentioned about making sure the officers are well aware of what's being recorded and all that potential civil litigation, is the content of the recordings subject to the Public Records Act so that people can request?
No, typically if that is requested, we claim exemption under the investigatory records exemption under the California Government Code.
Okay. I had a question on the change in the admin code that you were referring to, Mr. Chair, about retention for 2 years.
Correct.
I just wanted to check, is there the types of things that we need the recordings for in order to protect our officers and protect ourselves from liability and litigation? What is the statute of limitations for those types of things? I mean, could someone bring something after 3 years and then we won't have the evidence to help them out?
You want me to answer that?
According to the city attorney opinion, actually we're good after 1 year, but the 2 years is sort of a safety net just to be safe.
Yeah. The other thing is the second there's any type of investigation or use of force or any specific thing where the video should be pulled by the department for any legal reason or otherwise, that second that's pulled, that video is stored indefinitely.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, no, but what I was thinking about is can someone 2 years out file a claim?
Those kinds of claims historically and as the research was done by the city attorney's office were always done within 1 year, which is why they felt 1 year was more than sufficient, and it meets the regulatory requirement set forth by the state of California in terms of data retention. So 1 year was more than sufficient.
Cool.
However, and the Attorney General's opinion, I believe, if I recall, looked at also just the cost of municipal government storing volumes of data like this, and the consideration of what types of claims and statute of limitations are out there. And so with that, the 1 year requirement was sufficient. The department's response to that was 2 years would have been better. But we right now, the policy is 5 years. We're talking about over millions of dollars over time, particularly once the system's citywide. And so it's sort of pointless at that point to do that. And again, those situations and incidents that are where the data is pulled will be retained forever. And so we're pretty well covered, I believe.
Final question is, as we move, as there's a significant push to go to the on-officer system, are there, as we go in that direction, are there things that we've learned either technologically or in terms of implementation and use that would be best practices that we should be looking at as we decide how to do the on-officer stuff?
You want to speak to you?
So the short answer is yes. I think this has been a learning curve for everyone. We've prided ourselves as an organization and as a city to be in the forefront, as Mr. Englander talked about. But essentially what we've always done is we've never done this in a bubble. We've always gone out to other agencies. We've looked at other best practices that they're applying. We've looked at even our own implementation process, how we rolled it out by division. Was that successful? The chief talked about an ad campaign. We did a lot of that in the beginning, but then we fell off of that. And I think he brings a good point that that's something that we have to sustain. Certainly from the officer perspective, we have always worked with the officers as we implement to make sure that we're meeting the needs. But also what we've done is we've looked at the technology and tried to balance that. Because sometimes, and I'm a big proponent of this, just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do something. And that's what we've always looked in terms of technology, because sometimes simpler is better, especially out in the field. And that's, I think, one of the things that we've always looked at as part of our implementation.
And that's why we start small. Also, the body-worn camera field test will start with 25 to 50 devices, and we'll look at things like how does it compare to our policy around in-car video, what things should be the same, what things should be different, given the difference in the type of equipment.
And that's why we've gone with bureau orders, because we knew that once we started this, we knew that Special Order 45 wouldn't cover everything. And so instead of continually changing to Special Order 45, as we transition and learn things, we've worked with the Protective League to do the bureau orders, then knowing that at some point when we go beyond South Bureau, we'll have to merge that into a new citywide order. And I think the same thing will probably happen with body cams. As we get the body cams out there are going to be a lot of things that we didn't anticipate with those cameras. And so ultimately we'll have to tweak that special order again to deal with all the changes that we see.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And in fact, I'd like to add a couple things on that and listen to the conversations. One is that, and I appreciate your feedback on it was just an idea to do the survey. So while that'll be conducted by the commission, working with in partnership with the department to come up with those questions in the league, I would request that the information obtained is not a matter of public record. That information is solely for, and when the Police Protective League receives that information, as well as the commission and the department, that it be sealed, that because the responses from officers could open up liability, we can ask city attorney opinions on that later, but look at potential legal liability or threats of lawsuits, and or more importantly, the tactical strategies that could come out of that. So we'll look into that, but I don't think it should be a matter of public record. And then with that, once that information is ready to come back, we look forward to working with you on the citywide policy on that as well. So appreciate that. I think that'll be the order and the direction of this committee. We'll go ahead and move it with those recommendations. Mr. Tiefenk, good morning.
Richard Tiefenk, Executive Director of the Police Commission. What I will do is I'll work with Ms. Goodrich and Sergeant Gomez to, on behalf of the Commission, request that they do the survey and that they have the access to the systems to put the information out. When that survey comes back, we'll have a subcommittee of the Police Commission consisting of 2 commissioners, so it does not have to come to the public, and then they can work with the department and the Protective League on the issues that you talked about.
Terrific. Thank you for that recommendation. So we'll go ahead and incorporate that as well. I appreciate that. And thank you again,
Thank you.
all of you. All right, I believe that concludes all the agenda items.
It does.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Good meeting.